Hi, BookTube, and we're back again with another Simak book. And this week it is The Werewolf Principle. And I've got a couple, and they've got
Wow, three different
four
covers.
different
That's awesome.
editions there.
Yeah.
And I've had them all. Except, well, this one's a new one for me. And I was saying before, and I've said it many times. These are British editions, and I love the way his name is. And I want to get like a nice condition of every one that they did in this edition. But see, this one's sun faded, but it's better than nothing.
That's cool.
So yeah, so this
I don't know how many Daw editions he has. I mean, he doesn't have a bunch, right? It's maybe four.
4 or 5. I'm not quite sure, because Destiny Doll, which is December's, is Daw as well.
I've got that one too. It's Destiny Doll. And I think I have one other one, Out of Their Minds. We did that one, Out of Their Minds, with the devil at the White House.
I think our children's children, maybe.
Okay.
I think there could be 5, maybe even 6. Off the top of my head, I can't remember now exactly, but they're all great covers, and it's just a lot of them are. The only one, like, I don't know, this is kind of growing on me, but it's very strange. I guess it's accurate, sort of, for the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just
it's definitely not some random painting they found. It's definitely related.
Yeah, that kind of reminds. This one's kind of all over the place a little bit, but you know, I don't know. It's probably not my favorite. I like the doll one, I think, the best.
Yeah, it is. Like, is that it almost has Richard Powers vibes to it, but it's.
Let's see.
Sure.
But I don't think it is.
Yeah.
They didn't give credit.
You know who did this one? You could probably name
that. Kelly?
Yep. Frank Kelly Freeze.
Yeah.
Yep. I like, I noticed down there.
Oh, yeah.
That guy right there.
A brownie?
Brownie, yep.
Well, that's you, Ira, on the thumbnail. Brownie.
Yeah, I was talking to Brandy and telling her I really love these thumbnails she makes, and
yeah, me too.
Yeah,
it's
great. Love it.
Yeah, she was going to tweak this one, but she just didn't have time. But it's still good. It's still a good one. They're all great
for sure.
So we'll do the normal. Like, there's no one watching yet, as far as I can tell. It's 0. And I think we're live. Let me just see.
Looks like
I should have got a text message. Oh, actually, wait a minute.
It says live at the upper left.
Yeah. It's saying that I am live on my own. I got a message finally saying that we're live on my channel.
Very cool.
Yeah, there's 0. Oh, there's 1 now. There's 1 now.
Hello, person.
So we'll do the same thing. We'll do sort of a general overview of the book, and then sort of say maybe just briefly what we each thought of it, and then we go into the spoilers and talk a little more detail. And Ira is the sacrificial lamb this time to describe the story.
Well, this one's kind of a little hard to talk about without spoiling it too much, but the back of this Berkeley one, it does, like, I won't go too much past what it says on the back of the book. So, but when we start this off, we have a very kind of like fragmented, weird first chapter where there's some entity trying to figure out where and when they are and what they are. And it's kind of like very vague. And then we get to where we kind of realize we're on Earth, and there's this character who's kind of he shows up out in the middle of the woods, and it's raining, and he's naked, and he's trying to figure out how he got there. And he kind of remembers being on a porch of some house looking out, and he needs to find shelter, and he goes and finds this house, and it happened to be like a politician. I think it's a senator. And the senator takes him in. Some of his guards kind of harass him a little bit and say, hey, there's this werewolf or some wolves loose in the area. and they're kind of on high alert. But the senator seems to be a really nice guy, takes him in, and he's like, "Hey, aren't you this guy that humanity just kind of found recently, who was out in the galaxy somewhere and returned to Earth?" And the guy says, "Yeah." And you kind of get the feeling even this guy is trying to figure out, like our main character is trying to figure out who he is and some of this stuff. And you find out fairly early on that he's kind of sharing his mind with two other entities, and that's what's on the back of this. They mention that in here. And there's a couple aliens that are occupying parts of his mind, and they come in and out and can kind of take over his body at times. Sometimes they can have these conversations together. And this is what was kind of giving him these blackout periods where one of these other entities were taking over his mind. And so there's a lot of mystery set up in this book about where he actually came from. There's a talk about like 200 years ago, humanity sent some colonists out and never heard from him again. Like, is he from that group? Or there was this maybe experimental program going on. Was he someone from there? And you'll find out pretty early on too, there's these aliens on the planet called brownies that were on the cover of that Daw book. And they're kind of just doing their own thing on the planet Earth. They don't really care too much about humanity, but they love the planet and everything, the harmony of the planet, a theme that Simak puts in a lot of his books. And so somehow like all this stuff is related. And as you read through, you get an amazing story. Sometimes it's an adventure. There's some deep philosophical thinking. There's a little bit of everything, and a pretty good ending, I think, in this one too.
A happy ending as well, like a very happy ending.
You bet. Well done, Ira.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot better than I could have done. It's quite a while ago that I read it, and I sort of was vague on a few details. Shahar is here.
Hello, Shahar.
Hey, Shahar. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mentioned it was a while for me too, so I explained it to my wife, spoilers and all, and then she was like, "I think I would have liked to read this book."
That's awesome.
But, yeah.
So you liked it?
I liked it.
Very good. Yeah, I did too. I think I read one reviewer. I was looking up some old reviews on it, and I think it was Judith Merrill said that as soon as it was set up, we're in resolution phase, and I feel that would be my only criticism, I think, because I really, really liked it. But it does feel like you just start to understand things, and now we are starting to resolve stuff, to bring it to a close, but I really liked it. I love the idea of it. I love the philosophical stuff. I love the Simakian stuff that he puts in there. Is that a new word, Simakian?
I like it.
Yeah. But it's so cool to read these every month like this and just see what he plays with all the time, and it appears,
Yeah, because there's similar themes, and even though he's not in Wisconsin this time, but he's still in Webster country in some ways. The senators, the politician's house is almost like a Webster house, because we find out that this in the future, houses move. Like if you want to go traveling or an appointment in the city, your house moves there.
Just move the house. Yeah.
Some great ideas with the technology and stuff. Yeah. I should note too that he does actually give a specific date when they're talking. So this is set in like 2487, basically.
Yeah. Nice. And the main character has the memory of 200 years ago prior to that. So still in our future at this point. But I love too the way he has, the AI or the robot intelligence of the sort of the kitchens, and they're arguing. The robots are arguing sort of with each other, saying, like, well, he wants some food. No, he doesn't want any food and stuff like this.
Yeah, and even when he says he just wants this food, and the kitchen's like, you need to eat more than that. I'm going to make you eggs and bacon too.
I love
And
it.
then another trait is that he'll put sort of these mythical creatures in, like brownies, but they're not brown. Like, he calls them brownies, but they're an alien race that have come to Earth, and it's kind of interesting. And I like when he does that, because he brings in these fantasy elements, or could be fantasy, but they're not fantasy anymore.
Mhm.
They're science
Yeah.
fiction. And also too, he's got, like, from City, like the brownies have this brotherhood of animals and stuff too, because they're friendly with all other animals, like the raccoon that's
Yeah.
staying in the tree
Yeah. That's
with
pretty cool.
family.
Yeah, and it's interesting, because they're aliens, like you said. They come to the planet, and then they just left a few of them just to hang out, I guess, and they've become, it's really amazing if you see one. They said that it's really rare that you see one, but they seem to be hanging out for who knows what reason. And then that they
Yeah,
would name them after something we know is like perfectly human. I like that, like cookies on the internet or whatever. It's like, these things look like this mythical creature, so that's what we're going to call them. You know, I think that that's pretty great.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
there.
get into, well, that's even a little bit of spoiler, but more spoiler,
Mhm.
as Iris was saying, like, who is this guy? And you sort of find out by a committee that 200 years ago, before that, they created um, two beings, two humanoid beings that could morph into other aliens and study them, and one part of them will sort of be analytical and figure out something about the race, and
Mhm.
continually learn this by other races.
Mhm.
And it comes back to the whole thing of Simax, that there's, if you get enough information, there's an answer out there for something. There's an
Right.
answer out there.
Yeah. Yeah, there was that talk in here. I don't think it's too spoilery, but what do we do with this data?
Yeah.
What do we do with what we've learned? And the idea that somebody out there will make use of what it is that we've learned. What was it? Was it out of it was the dome one, wasn't it? The dome one where that was a whole was it, what was that called again? Out of time?
All
What was that?
flesh is grass.
All
All
flesh
flesh
is
is
grass.
grass.
Yeah.
Thank you. I wasn't even close. So yeah, all flesh is grass. But they were saying, we've collected all this data from the universe, and you can use it. You are the race that could use it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. And it's
here, it's like we're going to collect all this data, and somebody out there is going to use it, but it's not the humans this time that are being spoken of as the ones.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing as that, like in Choice of Gods,
Mm.
where they're contacting the principal, that there's information, there's something out there. Project Pope, they're collecting information,
Yeah,
it just permeates his whole, like, most or a lot of his stories, that
that's
there's
pretty
some
cool.
information out there, and information is
Yeah,
important.
is that the newspaper man in him?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it could very well be. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that he's locked. That this character is locked into the last sort of alien that he became, and
Mm.
one's like a wolf,
Yeah.
but very interesting because it's got arms as well, that are in little pockets
Yeah,
on the shoulders, which is
that's
kind of
cool.
cool.
So
And
are we? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
one is like a blob of intelligence that's usually takes the shape of like a pyramid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's the analytical computer, like,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
He's gonna calculate, like, think about all the information.
Right.
uh but yeah, so he finds out, like, it's not that, it's a bit co- convoluted
Mm.
story to a certain extent, but it's very simple. Like, the resolution is pretty simple, because he finds out what he is, and the senator and the world finds out who he is. And there were two of these beings, and
Mm.
the other one was a female, that's the senator's, the politician's daughter, that
Mm.
took daughter. And they're just gonna send him back on his mission of what he's going to do. So they got a new rocket ship. So he goes and she goes. So, he's got a mate, you know, and they're the same.
And some
they're
brownies
gonna-
tag along.
yeah, yeah.
a ragtag group.
It's I think it's just a fabulous little story. Like it people have said that Simak stories are deceivingly simple. And they are, I think, because just on the surface, there's not much there, but you start peeling away the layers of this kind of thing. Of just think somebody that has three personalities, like it's almost like as if somebody has, I guess is it bipolar, the schizophrenia type thing, like but this is a real situation, but the guy's reacting with it and as if he's maybe possibly some mental illness that is happening to him because he's talking to these other beings at the same time.
And plus he's 200 years away from his time, so he's got that too, because the world is not how he left it. So
and that's similar to the guy from Project Pope. He was frozen in time, and there's a lot of that kind of thing, that people are out of time, like they're out of their period in Simak stories.
Yeah. So I feel like we're in spoiler territory now, right?
Oh yeah, we're definitely.
Okay, very good. So they it's interesting that the three of them were called the Quester, the Thinker, and the Changer. Yeah. And I love the when they went into conversation with themselves, how he did that in the book. I thought that was really well done. But the Changer is the human.
Yeah.
So I thought it was interesting that the human is and he's an android, right? He wasn't even human, right? And then you have the Thinker, and then they picked up Quester, right? And Quester was the wolf.
Yeah.
Right? And then Thinker is the pyramid.
And what's really cool about it too is, there's that scene where he was in the hospital, and at this point he knows these entities are there, and the werewolf or the wolf kind of wanted to take over, and he's like, no, don't. And he ends up doing it, creates a panic. Yes, the wolf flees the hospital, and this is where it kind of becomes a little adventure for a little while, but the three of them have to work it out how to get away. And at times he's the human walking around trying to blend in. At times they're like hiding in a cave, and that intelligence entity can kind of morph into the wall of the cave and try to hide. And then at one point they decide they need to make it to this town that's 100 miles away. So then they decide to let the wolf take over because he can run the fastest. And like they all have to kind of work together to get to this like end point.
But then they need to carry his clothes and other food, and that's what he says. Remember, you have arms. You have arms. Take them out of your pockets.
Carry this pack. Yeah,
because twice he turned back into his human form, naked with no clothes, and so they decided, hey, wear a backpack with the clothes, and then when I turn back into human, I can put my clothes back on.
He even called that woman, I can't remember her name, I'm sorry, but he called her to bring him some stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
and the other thing is too, like we were talking before, because there's reviews. Judith Merrill was talking about that. She thought it was good, but she thought the violence was excessive. And it's interesting how he deals with that violence, because it's there, but it's just in passing. When he's in the hospital and he turns into the werewolf, he literally is tearing apart some humans, some people there. He's just pushing them aside with his jaws or his claws, and he's ripping them to shreds. But it's not in detail. It's just in passing, never mentioned again. Nobody had mentioned it as well, saying that, this wreak of havoc, and all these deaths. It's just
that was funny to me. I think it must just be I'm so acclimated to violence at a much higher level than that, in the movies we watch and other books and things, that when I read that, I was like surprised by it, because I wouldn't describe this book as violent to anybody.
Yeah, but it like, again, it's deceivingly, it's there, but you don't sort of realize it. I'm going to go through a couple comments here. Just Vic was saying great covers. I need to check the cover. I
don't know if everybody saw this one there.
Yeah, and then I have this one, and then this one.
Yeah.
So 4 different ones. And then
there's the brownie. The brownie that we were talking about is right there.
Shahar says, I fear the time when our toasters are smarter than us.
Oh, that's funny.
And
that's great. I read a Cory Doctorow story about a toaster. Wish I could remember the name of it, but it was pretty funny. It would only toast certain brands of bread. So you had to hack the toaster in order to toast the bread that you wanted to toast. And it was a pretty good allegory for what's going on.
Pat's here.
Hey, Pat.
Book chat with Pat.
That's great.
Yeah, and Sci-Fi Finds, that's Jack. Hey, Jack, how's it going?
Jack, hello.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I had him on. We read a Silverberg book together.
Cool.
Yeah.
Which one?
To Open the Sky.
Oh, wow. I haven't read that one. I don't even think I've heard of that one.
It was right when he got back into writing science fiction after kind of taking a break. And he went through that amazing period in the late 60s and 70s. And so it was kind of, even though it was published later, it was like some of the first writing that Frederick Pohl convinced him to do.
Oh, nice.
So you could see the seeds of everything else he was going to write, but the story itself was okay.
Yeah.
A really good one, talking about Silverberg for a second, is, what is it, billion years through space or something like that? It's something billion years, I think. It's an archaeology book.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm.
I know what you're talking about, yeah.
I'm not sure I'm familiar with that one, yeah. That's great. The Book of Skulls, I think, is a book. The book that he wrote that I've read the most often is Book of Skulls. I like that one a lot.
I've yet to read that, but
yeah,
it's on the list.
Good deal. And of course, all his short stuff. I like Passengers is one that comes to mind. It's loosely related to this one. You know, Passengers, I don't know if you guys remember that story, but in that one, people are randomly, I would say, possessed or taken over by aliens. And the aliens kind of use their bodies to run around and live and stuff, and then they retreat. And so you wake up out of a fugue and you're in bed with somebody, let's say, and the walk home, society has become normalized to it. So when you're walking home from wherever shameful thing you may have been doing, society looks away. They know what happened. You pull yourself back together, get back to your life. Yeah. Passengers, it's a short story.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's good.
Sci-Fi Finds here. Jack said, read 2 Simak books this year. City, which he thought was great, and then Time is the Simplest Thing, which he didn't like. Have you read the latter, and what did you think of it? I've read it, and we'll be reading. I think it's on the list for next year.
Cool.
I think
I can
it
pop
is.
that up here. Yeah. Anyway, keep going. Yeah.
I liked it. I don't think there's anything that Simak has written that I don't like. There's ones that I like more than others, but there's always something I find of interest.
Yeah, it's June of next year.
June. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. When Jack and I were kind of trying to come up with a book to read, we were going to maybe do Silverberg or Michael Coney or Simak, and I was like, well, I'm reading some of these ones with Sean and company, so maybe we can convince Jack to read one in 2025. I'm sure.
Nice.
Sean, you'll do a video at some point, like listen out.
I will. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like this, just for everybody watching here, it was. I started it, and I was going to do a book every other month, starting with City, Way Station, and a couple other things, like skipping months. I think I started in March, I think it was. But then a few people were saying that, oh, I'm doing a Simak book a month. And then I thought, okay, why not? I'll throw in some other ones. And they weren't sort of in any order. They were just sort of, okay, I'd like to reread this one and this one and this one again. And then it sort of has taken off. And then starting in February, we'll go back and start reading the stuff chronologically. So when he wrote them, and then add some whatever decade that book was written in. We'll read a few short stories as well, or the idea. We'll read a few short stories, and then the only one that's out of sequence again is January, which is Goblin Reservation. Is just because I reread it earlier this year, and Scott missed it, and I think a few others missed it. So, and I've been asked to add it in, so that's January. But I will do a video and then list all the books, because basically it'll take us through 2025 to read them all, and then half of 2026 to complete all the novels he's written.
Very cool.
Sounds like fun.
No, yeah. It's like I say, it's just there's so many things that I've been rereading this like month after month, that I, again, like I'm saying, I'm beginning to see patterns. And like right at the beginning, we were like Scott's doing the huddle watch.
Huddle watch, yeah, because that's his favorite word, it seems.
I even notice it now in other novels. When someone mentions huddle, I'm like,
yeah,
makes me think of Simak.
I was going through all my magazines since the last time we met. I was like, I need to organize my magazines. I don't have a ton of them, but I was going through them all, and I have one with Huddle by Stephen Baxter, and I need to read that and find out if it's in any way alluding to. I feel like it would be, but let's find out. I'm eager to find out. So I have this little part in the werewolf principle that really illustrates the thinker and quester. But it's interesting to me that the human is named Changer, and again, the human is an android, not a human. But the android has human in him, right? Because he's like imprinted with a human, the human psyche. But
yeah, when they're
he's got the memory of
right,
of somebody,
and the person himself, right? I mean, it's like they made a copy of the person, put it in an android.
And the brain, the mind of
right, the mind of a person, right, a specific person. Yeah. And that was something I was really eager. I'm glad that they actually got to meet and talk. Yeah. Although it was a little bit of a, I was hoping for more there, but I thought it was really, because when these two are going to talk, I was pretty excited. I thought, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, because when he's fleeing the hospital, he's not sure where to go, and then he remembers that big. It's like almost like a moving city that flies over, and it like shakes the whole planet almost as it's coming over.
Yeah.
And he talks to a guy, and he said, "Oh yeah, there's this town up a ways," and he's like, "That's the town someone tipped me off. I need to go there." And so he ends up going there.
He said something like that.
Yeah, and there was like this lawyer who had this information. If he could answer a couple questions from his childhood, some really obscure questions, then he gave him all this information. And it turns out that that brain that was scanned and then uploaded into a computer, that was still around. The human had died. And then there was almost like the branching off where the android took over those memories and went on his way. And now, like you said, they were going to meet again. It was very interesting.
Yeah, and he gets a phone call. And it's like, hello.
Well, initially he's like, should I go meet this guy? Because his intelligence is nearby. And he's like, nah, I'm not going to go talk to him. It's like, what? And then later the guy tracks him down. So you finally get that, like Scott was saying. I was hoping they could talk. So.
Yeah,
but the other thing is, you've got the woman who's the same as him, and
we don't find that out till the end, right?
Yeah, no, and it's like she's obviously got a backstory too, but we don't know anything, other than she was taken in by this the politician, as his daughter.
Yeah, really. My only criticisms, there's just a couple like conveniences, like. Yeah. The fact that the project was initially called like the Werewolf Project, and then one of the alien entities happened to be sort of looks like a werewolf.
Yeah. Well, I think it, like, I can see how they would do that, because they knew that the entity, the AI, could shapeshift into something else, and what shapeshifts, a werewolf. So. And then, it's convenient, though, that the first one is a wolf-like creature.
Yeah.
A few more comments here. It says Jack saying the books of his I have on the shelf are Cemetery World, Shakespeare's Planet, All Flesh is Grass, and Time and Again.
Love All Flesh is Grass. Love
yeah,
it.
we've done that. Time and Again is definitely next year, and I think Shakespeare's Planet is Cemetery. No, I don't think Cemetery World is.
Yeah, Cemetery World's in October.
Okay,
yeah.
So
and
Shakespeare's Planet's December.
December, right?
Yeah. And then Shakespeare's Planet. I think it's kind of neat. I'm biased, but I enjoyed it. So definitely, if you wanted to join us, that's if you got that one, or you can join for any of them. Time and Again, or any of the others. And Chara says so. Memory/time is the changer and human.
Yeah, I like that. So there's this part where it describes the thinker and the quester. It says, there was nothing, absolutely nothing that could astonish thinker. To him there was no mystic quality in the universe or life, but rather a mass of fact and data, of principle and method, which could be fed into his mind and be utilized by his faculty for logic. But for me, thought quester, for me it all is mystic. To me, there is no need of reason, no compulsion reaching out for logic, no cold, no intensive drive to burrow to the heart of fact.
Yeah, it's
and
just
then the humans somewhere in the middle there, I guess. But because
it's
interesting. I've been mulling over, the fact that it's called the changer.
Yeah, because I think it's because he changes, and I guess
and I think that's right. But is it kind of a
And-
human ability to do so?
And initially, when they programmed this android, they thought if he encountered an alien species, he could almost be a doppelganger for one, absorb their knowledge, and then go back maybe to his ship, and then, disembark from that planet, remove that part of his mind, and move on to the next one. But they didn't realize that these were going to stay inside of his mind. That's why he ended up kind of with like 3 different parts of him.
Well, I think,
and it could be even more than that. They said too. There's nothing magic about the number 3 there.
Yeah,
it's like he at the end. He's off to get more.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I think the idea was that it was the first time. So if he meets another race and does the same thing, he might disappear. One of them might disappear, or be added to. Right. See, that's the thing. It's sort of up in the air there. He doesn't go into those details, but it could be that one of them will disappear.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. But yeah, that's interesting. And so it's interesting to consider then that quester could quester absorb thinker if he had the same ability. It's like he wouldn't understand thinker at all. The human can understand both.
Yeah, because it's like because I guess it's stereotypical, but it's the wolf creature that is just, there's no logic. It's just emotion. I guess it's just animal instinct.
They called it. He said it is all mystic.
Yeah,
that's an interesting word too. Mm-hmm.
So thinker, you do get to learn a little bit about their world, and it's like they pass the information from one to the other. They do die, but they don't fear death. Is that right? Does that ring a bell?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
I think Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was. I just remember now. There was a really good line in here somewhere, and I've just completely forgot of it. And I should have looked it up. There was something that I thought was really good. It was like poignant, but also
Can
humorous.
you give me a word or two? I have the Kindle version here. If you give me a word or two, I'll try and find it.
I can't really think of it at the moment. I just remember seeing it, and I think I might have mentioned it. I can't remember in the group or not, but sort of scanning through, because I know it was on what side of the page it was on, but I can't remember anything else. So never mind.
Gotcha. Yeah,
that's a reason to read it, because he throws those lines, those deep thinking lines in every once in a while, and just kind of asks these questions, and it's what I love about him.
Yeah, that's what I've grown to love about him too. It's yeah, I mean, the story may be simple, but what he's hanging on there, all the ornaments he puts on, is amazing stuff.
Yeah, and well, and the
Again,
thing is too that like he comes back to the same sort of ideas, which I think is interesting, and he doesn't just regurgitate it the same way. It's he looks at a different aspect of it, you know. And
Mhm.
there's certain things like well, I won't say too much, but for this one, there is a reoccurring entity that shows up in a lot of his other stories, and in the very last book he wrote. You
Hmm.
know, it goes right back to 1930. It's like he has this reoccurring things, and if you read all the short stories, everything from the 1930s, you've got 70%
Hmm.
there already.
That's interesting.
60,
So
70%.
the last book he wrote was Highway of
Highway.
Eternity.
Yeah.
So he's like hitting these ideas kind of from different angles and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And
Yeah.
And you see, I never really noticed this when I read him, first of all, because I read him over many years, picked up a book, you know, read it, and then you know, completely out of order or anything like this. And recently we've been reading quite a few that are concentrated in the late 60s, I think,
Hmm. Yeah.
and early 70s.
Yeah. So this one was written between All Flesh is Grass and Why Call Them Back from Heaven, which isn't, I haven't read that one yet,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
then
that'll
Goblin
be
Reservation was right after that. So 1967.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it like we'll remember some things, but it won't be as fresh as if we actually did it
Mm.
you know, chronological from the beginning. Then we'd probably see a lot more connections.
Yeah.
But they're definitely there. And like I say, in this one, he's not in Wisconsin. They're in like New Jersey or something like that, or at
Hmm.
least he's going in or maybe it's outside of Washington, where Washington D.C. that the senator's house is. But like the way he describes the house is Webster House, you know,
Mm.
and it's on a hill, I think. And you know, he's even though he's not in Wisconsin, he's still describing where he grew up. And even on
Hmm.
different planets, he'll do that kind of thing as well. He's still in Webster land, or they call it Simak land or whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it's always there.
Yeah. Another scene that sticks with me is when um, he turned into Thinker in a chapel and then thought for like a year.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
I forgot about
it was like, you know, he turned back into a human and then walked out of there not knowing that a year had passed. And he said, "How long have I been in there?" And that was really cool. Yeah. And not only that, but then people had gathered, right? It became a cult
Yeah.
or some type of religion. It's like, what is that dude in there thinking about?
but the thing is, like you say too, is like, you know, how do you portray somebody split into three parts, you know?
Mm,
And he does, like, you know, when they got this internal dialogue, he what does he do? Like he uses dashes basically for that, you know, that it's an
yeah,
internal dialogue, you know,
yeah.
between.
It worked so well.
And you don't need to be told specifically Quester said, Changer said. Like he does throw that in occasionally, but
Hmm.
he's got a different voice and a
Yeah.
different thought pattern for each one, and it works.
It's
Yeah.
distinct enough you don't need that prompt at all.
Hmm.
Yeah, his writing skill is amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And you know, there's even like the humor of, you were talking about, these houses are really cool. They're all completely automated, and there's just universal foundations almost. So if you want to travel, they've got like anti-gravity figured out. So the house picks up, moves somewhere else, and you have a doctor's appointment. You know, you're just in your cozy house and you can go to the doctor's afterwards. But there's that really humorous scene where he's kind of off in the woods and he stumbles across that diner.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
And the
yes.
diner's the same way. It's fully
Yeah.
automated, and he goes in there to order some food, and then that brownie shows up, And the diner's like, oh, not this troublemaker. And the dialogue between the brownie and the artificial intelligence diner was pretty funny.
And then the police come along the road. Like, it's just, it's like he's in some ways showing a very dystopian future, you know, but again, you don't realize it until you start thinking about it. It's like, you know.
Yeah. And at that same time is when that big floating kind of city goes overhead and disrupts everything, the wildlife and the people that are in the diner, if there were more people than that. And you come to find out, like, they're almost like going on a vacation retreat, all these people in this big floating city. And they don't care, they just fly over the coast. Whoever they go over is just going to rattle them, and it's just like whatever.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, I really do like the idea of the houses, because you got car parks, now you got house parks, you know.
Yeah.
You park your house for a while.
Yeah, the doctor says, hey, we got to open a foundation, so come to my doctor's office tomorrow and land on this foundation. I was like, I'll sign up for that.
That's great. Oh, too funny. Love it.
Yeah, like I said, it's the story itself is pretty simple, but it's fun. Like Ira, you were saying that it's got a lot of twists and turns. It keeps you going. It's not. It's like it's. Again, I just used the word deceptively simple, because you got all the he does put layers in them if you start looking at it, like all these other ideas. So sometimes like this episode is not going to be, we don't have a huge amount to talk about, with regard to the book specifically. And then others, there are more things, but there's a lot of ideas that are put in this. It's not as profuse as Project Pope. Like, he just threw everything in there. He threw in the kitchen sink with that one, man. It's like I was so on the reread of it, I'm going, Jesus, like there's 30 novels just in here, you know.
Yeah.
Just from these ideas, you know.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I agree.
Yeah, and this one, it's like he was pulling a lot of different tricks. Like, that first chapter was so bizarre. And then when he's contemplating or thinking about when he was on those alien worlds, they're bizarre. And then there's adventure and humor and just that pastoral setting when he's hanging out with the senator. It's almost like a mix of everything, and it's always shifting, keeping you really engaged. And it was like maybe 200 pages, like most of his.
Yeah. And then like he's on the run. And, one of the brownies find him and takes him home, and he's inside a tree. He spends the night inside a tree. And the brownie also has a guest there, a raccoon that's running from coon dogs,
Yeah.
It's quite bizarre, in that way that he goes through that. But again, it comes back to his brotherhood of sort of man, or brotherhood of creatures, that goes right back to city, because the brownies, see this, and they're friendly with all the animals, and they're respected in some ways, but the humans think there's something wrong with them, I guess.
Have you seen that that interview? It's on YouTube, where James Gunn interviews Simak, and Simak talks about, like, he felt like he kind of won the lottery just by getting his stuff published, and then he kind of got a name, and he said, okay, what do I want to say now? And I love his philosophy of life. He's just like, from what we can tell, life is scarce from what we can see in our visible universe. So why wouldn't we care a lot about all sorts of life? We're huddled together here, basically, on this earth, and that harmony with nature and the animals and the whole thing is just, his philosophy is right along my same philosophy in a way.
Great. That's great. I need to watch that.
Yeah, it's pretty
on
good.
YouTube? Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, it's I think it was done for MIT, I think it was, or something like that. It's in the early 70s. I think he was just, or when was
Well, James Gunn taught at the University of Kansas or something, and he kind of, I think, had some sort of science fiction program.
yeah. I'm just trying to think of when it was done though, because he mentions a new book coming out, and it
Oh
might
yeah,
be
it was
Gods.
A Choice of Gods.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, he was kind of promoting that, and he was saying he did something really different in that one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a few other things as well. There's a Minnesota conference or convention that he's on with Lester Del Rey, Gordon Dixon, Theodore Sturgeon. I think all of them, and they each get to talk as well.
Very cool.
And there's quite a few interviews out there with him. That's the interesting thing. There's a nice book that's from, I think, NESFA. I think it was a Near Eastern Science Fiction Association publication of a actual conference, and Isaac Asimov was there, and they were on a panel together, and that's all put in there. But there's also some records that were published that were pressed actually with I think the conversations in, and I'd love to get those because they are out there somewhere.
Richardson's here.
Yeah,
great. Hello, Mark. I've been trying to not trying very hard, but I've been wanting to get that 4-volume James Gunn. I think it's called The Road to Science Fiction.
Yeah, I think it's 5 now. I think he added one. I think there's 5.
Do either of you have that set?
Not yet.
Yeah, I'd like to find that.
Yeah,
they seem like they're rare in paperback, but maybe they're on Kindle or something like that. But I would like to read that.
Yeah, because he goes right back. I think he includes Epic of Gilgamesh in that as well, because it's the road to science fiction, not necessarily everything is science fiction,
Right.
In there, because I love his stuff. I love his criticism and his historical aspect of science fiction. And there's not many still around that I do.
I read his book Campus, and I thought that was really good. It's not what it appears when you look at the cover and look at the title, but it was a really good novel.
Cool.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. He wrote because does he use James E. Gunn, I think, for his fiction generally, and then James Gunn or is it vice versa? I can't remember now.
There was more words in that book that I had to look up than any other book I've read in a long time, and he used them perfectly. Like he knew the English language really well.
That's cool.
Liberum Paradiso. I agree with Simak. Didn't know that quote. The Milky Way is one of a trillion or more galaxies making Earth.
That's it.
Insignificant, which is a reason to cultivate life and respect. Carl Sagan, was another believer in that as well. Like he's saying that, it's and another thing with Simak was that there is the quote. I don't know it exactly, but it's to paraphrase it is, we shouldn't go out into space until we figure out our own problems here. Like we need to do that first before you go somewhere else.
Yeah,
I disagree. I think going into space will help us solve our problems.
There is that, and that's what like Sagan too figured that if they actually were able to find that there was life somewhere else or intelligent life, he thinks that everything else would be sort of insignificant and our problems would sort of disappear.
You'd hope so, right?
Yeah.
You'd hope so.
Like
I remember how.
End.
Yeah, exactly. I remember how profound it was when Carl Sagan got him to turn Voyager around and snap a photo of the Earth from
the pale
Saturn or past Saturn, even.
Yeah.
The pale blue dot. I mean, that was profound.
Yeah.
Anybody who looks at that thinks, my goodness, everything's right there.
Well, that's where like a lot of a lot of people have talked about that, any intelligent life that's going by this, how does Douglas Adams call the arm,
Yeah.
out in the middle of the boonies, basically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, there's a few gas giants. Oh, there's a couple other rocks near the sun with a bit of water on. Okay, there's nothing here to look at. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, geez, when I was a kid, we thought there was other planets, right? We were just assuming that other stars had planets, but now, I mean, they're finding them all the time. Turns out planets are super common.
Yeah.
So we had thought maybe so, but now we know so.
But then to create intelligent life is maybe the thing that is the difficult part and impossible part. So
yeah, and another thing that I think has changed over time is, I think, Carl Sagan and radio telescopes and such. We used to be, the Earth is less noisy now than it was back then, as far as like radio and stuff, because now the way that we communicate, it's the satellites are directing it back at the Earth and everything. So we're not broadcasting Lucy out into the universe.
Yeah, that's a strange thing. Aliens come up with, and they get this thing, "Hey, Lucy," and it's like, oh,
yeah,
yeah, that's that famous thing. But I remember reading an article that said, we're not as noisy as we were, and who knows, it may continue that way. So we may have only had a 50-year blip of radioactivity, and then we're going to communicate differently, which is not going to be obvious to the rest of the universe. And maybe that's something that's happened. I mean, we think all the time about, if aliens are out there, why haven't we been able to detect anything? I think there's lots of reasons that that's possible. So
yeah, well, the thing is the distances too. Like, it's like it could be 6 galaxies over that there's somebody else sitting there like us saying, "Oh, I wonder if there's anybody else." And then if they do find out that we're here, or we find out they're there, what do? You can't just roll up and knock on their door.
Yeah, the distance is
just insane. It's crazy. Wasn't there? I think it was a Harry Turtledove story where it turns out that interstellar travel is actually pretty easy. It's just that we haven't come across it. And somebody at a medieval level of technology visited the Earth, because they had stumbled upon how to do that.
Well, see, the thing is that everybody
we don't know everything, I guess, is my point.
Yeah. Well, the thing is they keep saying that you can't go faster than the speed of light, so therefore you can't travel these distances. And I'm going, okay, maybe you can't go faster than the speed of light, but it's like you had horses, and it's like, well, you can't go faster than a horse, but you get an internal combustion engine that goes. Yeah. That's a different technology. It's completely different. Shoot. So there could be different ways of doing it.
I'm trying to remember the very opening of it was a Peter F. Hamilton. It was like Judas Unchained or the one that goes with that, whichever one's first. In the prologue, it was like the first manned mission to Mars, and the lander lands and the guy gets out, and there's somebody already there on the surface because they had discovered wormholes. And they were actually standing, and they had a tube going back into their lab through the wormhole. It was feeding oxygen, so they sat there watching the thing land.
I just read this one. I thought I'd read it before, but I don't think I did. And it's like, first man on Mars. Well, not first man on Mars, but colony on Mars.
Cool.
And I think
I've read that one.
Yeah. It's actually the best Clark that I've read so far.
Really?
There's something that did, like, there's things that bother me about Clark, and this really didn't have that in here. And it's to me, it's better than Childhood's End.
Oh,
it doesn't have as big ideas.
Yeah.
But I really, really enjoyed it.
I'll definitely get a hold of that one if I don't have it.
Yeah, I've always thought about that. If we ever sent out this big generational, ship that took thousands of years to get to some planet, by the time it gets there, based on their time dilation, the people on Earth, thousands and thousands of years could have gone by. There's probably someone that beat them there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's a good BBC radio program that was by, I always get this mixed up. Not the guy who wrote the cathedral things. It's called Earth Search.
Yeah.
And it's a generational ship. But they come back to Earth. The moon's here, but the Earth's gone.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I've got a great comment here.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. I'm on the right one. I sometimes try to imagine the magnitude of the universe, and I lose my breath just trying to understand the birth of stars and why they exist, why the universe exists, and how much exists is too much. Yeah, and that's where you get some great science fiction, great ideas. Just
something I've been thinking about
that too.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this one lately. If you stick with Einstein's theories and the way the universe is expanding, there's this idea that our visible universe right now will never see further than that, and we could definitely never travel that far. So there's these unknown parts of the universe that are just out of our reach for eternity. It's just a weird concept.
Wow. Yeah.
See, Simak figured that one out a little bit in some ways in The Creator in 1934. But he gets around, and this is
well said. Mark Richardson just added, it is. That's the answer right there.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
Like Simak, he gets around the idea of that you can't go faster than the speed of light in some of his stories, because they don't travel in the same way. They travel in different ways.
Yeah.
And again, it's like it comes back to here. Like they have conventional travel to a certain extent, but he goes back to things. There's different kind of travel as well.
That's our next book, right?
Yeah, for December.
I have that one too. Yeah. I know nothing about that. But I'd love
that cover art. It's like what I don't want any spoilers, but man, what is that?
Awesome.
Yeah, that's a little suspect, that cover.
Oh,
this one,
I love what Libro Paradiso is saying there. It's great.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say, Kelly Freas is good at depicting covers that make sense for the book. Others, I don't think, read the book a lot of times.
Maybe they give them a couple paragraphs or something. But I love, Libro Paradiso is reminding me of just, the science fiction that I love. I mean, there's a certain category, and there just seems like there's so few of them. But the ones that are the ooh wow ones, where you read it and you're just like, wow, that's, I think the last or the most modern one that I've read is called Spin by Robert Charles Wilson. That one left me with that ooh wow. But there's just not a lot of stuff being written right now that I've hit that give me that feeling. But one from that's older is Tau Zero by Poul Anderson. That blew me away. I mean, I was left just contemplating that for a long time.
Yeah,
but I look for that in science fiction. I'd love it when I find it.
Well, for me, I keep calling it a Hyperion High, because Hyperion was the last one that I've read for newest stuff that has done that. But people talk about what is it, Perdido Station or Perdido Station?
Oh, Perdido Street Station.
Yeah, that's supposed to be really good. Yeah. And then Spin has been mentioned, but I haven't read these yet. So, but I'm always looking for
Perdido Street Station. I haven't actually read that one, but I'm surprised to find that in this list or in this idea, because I didn't think that's what that was. But if you're saying it is, I better get it.
People have told me it is, so I don't know.
I think he writes kind of almost on the verge of urban fantasy, but I think he has, from what I can tell, some really great ideas. I haven't read anything from him yet, though. China Mieville.
Yeah, right.
And then Spin is Robert Charles Wilson, I think, right?
Right, Robert Charles Wilson.
I got to read that. I have it, so.
I
Cool.
just want to go back because I put these up, but they didn't
Mhm.
sort of read them out. I remember Sagan thinking about the intricate science behind sunlight whispering on a blade of grass and how it converts into energy and life is mind blowing. It made me see Whitman's poetry in a new light.
Mm,
Ooh, good pun there.
yeah, I love it.
And then Pat saying, I'm thinking of poet laureate Ada Limon's poem written for Europa, for the Europa. We too are made of wonders of great and ordinary loves of small invisible worlds of a need to call out through the dark.
Mm,
I don't know that poem, but yeah, that's
beautiful.
cool.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yep. Love it. Yeah.
Oh,
So
there's some
Richardson
more
says
ones.
he loved Perdido there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, was that an ooh wow piece of science fiction or was it an urban fantasy? Or maybe was it an ooh wow piece of urban fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's what I'm told, but like I haven't read it, but I am
Mhm.
really waiting for one to do something like that for
Okay.
Hyperion.
Yeah.
And but as I say,
Mhm.
Spin, I've heard I do have to get that and read it, and I'm sure there's some others that make them close to it because
Mhm.
Matt at Science Fiction Reads talks about a few things that sound, oh, that sounds really cool,
That's
some newer
cool.
ones.
So
So,
Richardson says it's bit of both. I've got to
oh,
get that.
okay, so yeah, so I do have it,
Oh, I don't
and I
have that.
do
I
have to
like
read
that
it
one.
at some point. Excuse me.
Very cool.
But yeah, so I
Yeah.
don't know. Sorry.
Matt was the one that, he's talked up Perito D Street Station a bunch and got me to want to read it. It's a long one, so I'm kind of just been like,
Yeah.
What's
So
the other,
sorry, go ahead, Sean.
what's the other one that Matt has talked about? Is it called? It's something to do with Europe. And is it Charles Wilson? Is it the same author as Spin?
He really talked up Spin too. That's what got me to buy
Yeah,
that one.
but
So
there's
Europe, I think that there's a series about Europe, and was it Hutchinson? Is that what you're talking about? Anyway,
I can't remember now, but it's something. Darwin is in the title.
Darwin's Radio.
Is that it?
Oh
That's
no,
Greg Bear.
Robert Charles Wilson also wrote a book called Darwin's something.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. That one
Yeah.
sounds interesting as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I've read one book from him. It was more of kind of like a thriller style science fiction, but it was
Mhm.
interesting. I definitely want to read more of him for a more contemporary. Most of the people I'm reading are long since dead.
Yeah, that's the same as me.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
Like
Right
what I
now, I'm
should do.
reading. I'm rereading Gateway,
Oh,
and I'm so in prep for, and I got the other three, Beyond the Blue, Event Horizon, and Annals of the Hichi, and all that.
Yeah,
Inspired
I've
by
got to get
Ira. I'm going
those.
to spend Christmas with all those.
Because I think I've read the second one. I haven't read the last one or two. I know that for
Mhm.
sure, and
Yeah.
I have to. But I was just thinking next year, so at some point, I'm going to have to make a point of trying to read new science fiction post
Mhm.
1966.
that's new.
New.
I don't know that you need to do that. Yeah. That's why it's like the older I get, the more I mean, I love watching Ira and I love watching Matt and some others that are just talking about this vintage stuff. It's I
Well,
just
I always,
love it. I just love it so
you know,
much.
you know, my thing is that like everything before 1966 is BS. It's before Sean,
Before
and
Sean,
then
yeah. Mhm.
everything uh post 1966 is ass. It's oh, is that what it is?
Mhm.
After
Yeah,
Sean
after Sean
Stanford.
Standfast. Yeah, it's all contemporary after Sean Standfast.
I like it.
Well,
That's awesome.
it's easy to just say all this stuff is like safe space operas with, maybe some ideas and everything, but there are some interesting things that have been written recently. Just
Yeah.
they're few and far between, maybe. I don't know.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that.
I got to check out Spin though.
I'm
for
reading,
sure.
yeah, and I'm reading. I started Lilith by George MacDonald. So that's old. Isn't that
Don't know that one.
1890 something? When did
Lilith.
George MacDonald write?
Lilith.
Maybe I'm Lilith. Yeah.
I don't recognize the title for some reason.
Okay. Yeah. Lilith by MacDonald is from 1895. So it was right.
Okay, that one I haven't read. So yeah, that's a new one to me.
So I'm reading that. It was part of that that Ballantine adult fantasy series. Everything I've read in that so far, and I've only read maybe 5 or 6. I've absolutely loved them. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fantasy. Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, it's fantasy. Yeah.
Okay,
I was just saying that I was reading it. Sorry.
No, that's
the track.
like that explains then why I don't know it and I haven't read it. If it's fantasy. Like you could be 99.9% sure if something's fantasy, I have not read it.
I think George MacDonald influenced Tolkien and Lewis. So it's like pre-Tolkien and Lewis. Yeah.
Like I've only read a few fantasy novels, and the author of them have been that's the most, and he hasn't written that many. You know.
Yeah.
I'm reading Dragonflight right now, which I always just thought was YA fantasy, but I'm really enjoying it.
That's cool.
See, that's science fiction.
Yeah, did you know? Yeah, did you know that was an analog originally?
Yeah, I think because it's like the book is 4 sections, and 2 of them were originally published in there, and 1 Hugo's and stuff.
I just think it's cool that it was an analog. In fact, I actually have a copy of that one, and it's got a picture of a dragon on the cover of analog science fiction, which is not what analog is known for, is dragons, but it's the origin of the dragons.
And it's always cool to. I mean, it reads like a fantasy at times, but you just put it in your head that wait, what is happening? No, this is science fiction.
Right.
But well, that's the thing. Brownies, our brownies. Brownies aren't science, but he makes them science fiction. Mark was saying his parents were worried when saw the adult.
Lyrical and enchanting. I was just responding to Libro parody, so that's great.
Yeah, no,
if you have any recommendations, Libro, I would love to hear them. I'm kind of new to MacDonald.
Yeah, I've read some of the stuff. I couldn't recommend it myself, and
I've really been enjoying Lord Dunsany and Clark Ashton Smith.
Ooh, I got to read some of him. Yeah,
those I'm kind of working my way through a big stack. They're pretty much short works. Dunsany, I've read a couple of novels, but he's got a lot of short stuff, and Clark Ashton Smith is mostly short stuff too. But it's great. It's really good.
Smith was friends with like H.P. Lovecraft, and
I think so.
Right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Gene Wolfe books.
I agree with that too. Yeah,
those are great.
That's the thing. Like that's how if I get fantasy, that's usually how I get it is in stuff like that.
That's fun. I recently read Gene Wolfe's. If it's not his first story, it's almost his first story. It was called Trip Trap, and it is science fiction and fantasy at the same time.
I love that.
I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like from his first story, it was just like, man, this guy's great. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I should try to read more. I promised others that I was going to read Lord of the Rings. I read The Hobbit and I didn't like it, so I've been putting off Lord of the Rings.
I read The Hobbit because I went to I haven't read Lord of the Rings, but I went to the movie The Hobbit, and I thought it was going to be the whole book, and they stopped. The movie stopped halfway through, and I was mad. I went and read the book.
Good deal. I love it.
Yeah, Mark,
The Hobbit
I think
added so much in those movies. Yeah. But
yikes!
Yeah, Lovecraft, an interesting guy.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like it's just going back to Simak. Like I got to keep occasionally go back to Simak. You hear all this shit, if you want to say, about, you know, the classic science fiction, fantasy, all these authors, and you hear all this you know, that they were awful people in some ways, but you never hear anything. Every single thing you hear about Simak was that he was a nice guy. And when you watch that interview with James Gunn, he just is like, he's so laid back. He's like he's just a country boy, like in some ways, you know, like Midwestern country boy in some ways. And it's just, I'd be super surprised if there was any scandal that is around him. Others, I'm not that surprised, you know.
Yeah.
But him, it would be a shock to me that if there was anything, you know, like he's gonna have your normal, you know, views of the time and stuff like that to a certain extent. But yeah, I don't think there's any scandal around him.
Yeah. Cool. So, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ira.
I was just going to say, when I can separate the art from the artist, most times, but when you find out more and more about a person and you get someone like Simak, that just makes me like his work even more, kind of.
Yeah. Well, there's an author I really, really like, and I want to reread. Well, I haven't read the final book of the Giants series. Is James P. Hogan.
James P. Hogan,
I really like James P. Hogan, but everything that I learn about him and read some of his essays, he was an odious person, you know, in many ways. But I love his writing, you know. I do like his books. You know, and that's one of those things.
Overdue library book.
Yeah.
Which
I bet you.
The worst scandal you can imagine.
Yeah.
Is an overdue. Yep. I love it. Well, this was fun, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Enjoying talking to you guys a lot.
So
Destiny Doll is next. When are we going to talk about this one? We get into the holiday season. It's going to be weird.
I've read it, so I don't. Yeah. Are we able to put it in this month, do you think, to get it done before the end of the year? Or?
Yeah, the question for me is going to be scheduling a.
Yeah, all of the holidays are, you know, on a Wednesday. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, so let's see.
So Saturdays might be okay then.
Yeah.
So Saturday, like the 28th, I'm going to be returning. The Sundays would be available. Sunday the 29th.
Okay, yeah.
But anyway, we can talk about what time. It would have to be just a little later than it is now. Just a touch later, like a half an hour later than we normally schedule would work for me on the 29th. Okay.
Well, I know I'm doing Sundays with Aaron for the MR James stuff. So that might be all the way through the month. So, and that's at 7:00 my time. So that's
I mean, another thing is I'm going to be gone the Christmas week I'll be out, and then I'm returning Saturday the 28th. And then, but I am off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 30th, 31st, and 1st. So I could actually, any one of those days would work fine. I don't know how what your schedule would be, but.
I might be able to.
Yeah, or we could go into the month.
I've got to make a video for what's going to happen next year, and then I'll tack on the end of that. Maybe I'll know by then, and then we'll tentative.
We'll figure it out. I guess everybody doesn't need to hear us figure it out. But thanks for coming, everybody, and happy holidays.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ira.
See you next time.
All right.